Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. A big welcome to everyone around the world who is joining us today, whether it's live or the replay. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and it is an absolute pleasure and privilege to be with you here again for this outstanding show that is getting so many acknowledgments from people around the world. It's really wonderful, the help that our star of our show is providing to people. Our show today is the Resume Whisperer, and our star is Mr. JosefStetter. He is in Canada. He has helped over 11,000 people. That's over 11,000 people. You know how many people that is? Find gainful employment. So he can help you as well. Do reach out to him. His contact information is right here behind me. Let's welcome him to the program and find out how to decode the anatomy of a winning CV. Welcome, Joseph. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me again. An honor and a pleasure. The glasses off. So
hello. Good to see you again.
Be better seen
on camera. How are things going there for you in Canada?
It's going great. I can't complain. It's keeping busy. Weather's getting colder, so getting used to that.
Fantastic. Well, Joseph, it seems like we have a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to ask a question and then just wait to hear you answer. We know how technology is. So I actually was on social media today, and I tagged you on a video. I don't know if you saw that or not, but a very well-known celebrity was talking about the fact that she just hired someone, and she was going through some of the experience that she had and how important first impressions are. And many times people just say something that's completely ridiculous because they're nervous. They just blurt something out and it causes sort of an awkward moment. But before we even get into that, the first thing that people know about you typically is about your resume, and yet people don't put that much time or effort into it. What's been your experience?
Listen, it's interesting that you had to say that because, part of my job, I wear two hats. I wear the hat of the resume whisperer that helps the individual market themselves correctly. And I also wear the hat of the recruiter that's looking to fill certain positions. I can't tell you how many profiles, let's say on LinkedIn, because I don't have their resume yet, I just look at and go, no, because they haven't bothered to put information that's relevant to me. Like, just because you put your title there doesn't automatically make you knowledgeable in areas of the field. And so LinkedIn right now for a recruiter like myself, and again, I don't post job postings anymore because I've also learned that unfortunately most people don't read the job posting. They just read the title and go, oh, yep, I know how to do this. And so I message people directly. And then if they want the job postings, I send it to them when they respond to me. But the amount of people that I pass because they don't give me any information is mind-boggling. I've spoken to C-level executives that give me no information as what they've done as a C-level. They're just like, I had the title, so what? I can give myself any title I want. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have experience in leading teams or leading certain strategies, because, I support entrepreneurs, and we need more entrepreneurs in this world. But if you're working for a 3-person company and you're the CEO, that doesn't necessarily reflect what a typical CEO is supposed to be doing or handling. So there's a level where you have to make sure that you tell your story through your resume and through your LinkedIn profile and through social media, because companies look at it, companies will check it.
Absolutely, great point. And for example, I'm the CEO of my companies. Who else is going to be CEO? Right? When you first start out, you're not bringing on partners. But my work as a CEO here at my businesses is obviously going to be different than someone who's the CEO at a major global organization. So, what I also think is interesting is when we think about the CV or we think about the resume, it can be understated, it can be overstated. And I've actually spoken to people that find it really annoying that they're supposed to somehow take all their experience, especially younger people. Maybe they've had 6, 7, 8, 9 jobs. How can you take your experience and take it down to 1 page, or I don't even know if 2 pages is acceptable? And you have expertise in this area as well as many others.
So here's the thing, like, generally speaking, you don't want to put, sorry, you cut out. I'm not sure if it's me or you in the internet, but generally speaking, if you have a lot of experience, you, first of all, never want companies will aid you, right? And secondly, the one thing that I will say is, you can, again, if you've done similar roles, you don't need to repeat the same thing over and over again. You can say it once or twice so that the algorithm catches it in terms of the applicant tracking systems, but then focus on other highlights that demonstrate your skill set. So when I tend to write resumes, I tend to have a section called selected highlights. And in that section, I just kind of give, here's the key points, or here's the best points that this person wants to represent.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. There's no point in continuously repeating the same thing. Joseph, is it completely and totally far-fetched to think that we could apply for a job and not have a resume?
The only time that happens is if you already have a reputation in the industry, and potentially a competitor, because they've spoken to you, or a vendor knows who you are. They don't necessarily need the resume to do the interview, but understand that the resume in part reassures somebody. Like, there's TV shows like 90 Day Fiance and Married at First Sight and so forth, that as entertainment and reality shows, they prove a concept that, can you get experts to match you without you doing some of the work? But just because you're texting somebody or using WhatsApp or any other technology to call internationally and see them on camera, like you and I are having in this interview, doesn't mean that when you're physically together, you're going to have synergy, you're going to have good chemistry, you're going to have conversations that flow as easily as it is in the social media realm. So I have never met anyone that from texting went, let's do a virtual ceremony and let's get married, even though we haven't met each other. It's no different in a job. Like, the resume requirement is kind of reassurance that there's a background, there's knowledge or skill set. But at the end of the day, it's the conversation you're having and how you're presenting your ability to produce results, your ability to make changes, your ability to think about strategies, your ability to influence, and all of those things. Um, there, it does happen where you might not need a CV because somebody already knows you. They've worked with you. They know who you are. They're interested in you, and they trust the conversation they're having to make the decision. However, from a perspective of HR, from a perspective of paperwork, eventually a resume will be needed.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Joseph, you mentioned a couple of reality TV shows, and I also watch reality TV, especially on the streaming services. And one thing that comes up for me, I just was watching a cooking show, is that people have to be coachable. You have to be, regardless of where you are in a company, people need to know that you can take direction, that you can be part of a team, that you're part of the organization. And when you're just about you, that really stands out. And I saw this in one of these episodes. So my question is, when we have our resume or our LinkedIn profile, do we need to have on there very coachable, takes direction well, part of a team? How do we get that across on a piece of paper or on a social media profile?
I don't think that you need to spend time to say that because there are questions that are designed to see that you are. So, a typical interview question is, how do you demonstrate teamwork? And here's where I can say most people have autoresponder on. So as soon as they have that question, they go, "Oh, I always help my coworkers, or I always help, them if I'm done my work or anything like that." And that's usually the typical answer that I have. So in my, exploration of what it is that I'm meant to do, I was being interviewed, and the HR person asked me, "How do you demonstrate teamwork?" And I gave her the best answer she's ever heard. I said to her, "I will have a bowl of chocolate and candy on my desk. If you're having a really bad day, come grab some chocolate and candy. You don't even need to ask permission. If you're having a really great day and you're just in the mood for a piece of chocolate, come grab some chocolate. You don't even need to ask for permission." That's how I demonstrate teamwork. She hired me just because she wanted a bowl of chocolate in the office.
I love that. That's a great story, Joseph. So we don't have to necessarily put that there, but it's some way, whether there's that questionnaire, the personality test. There's one question that I'm not sure how you're supposed to answer, so I just want to digress and ask you now. There's always a question about you helping your coworker, or your coworkers behind in their work, or they're not able to do XYZ. Will you jump in and help them? Will you put aside what you're doing to help them? What's the answer for that one?
Again, there is a level of um, kind of what I just said, but it's a combination of saying, okay, look, at the end of the day, I'm here to help the company make more money. So if that means I need to do a little bit more, or perhaps guide my coworkers or show them how to do things faster, more efficiently, or get their work done, and that includes, rolling up my sleeves and doing work, then so be it. But, and, I'm here to be part of the team. I'm here to help the company, right? Because I can tell you, having worked in leadership, I fired the top performers in my team because they were completely egotistical, as opposed to what's benefits everybody, right? And I've also been in an environment where, like, when I built the call centers from scratch, I made sure that I celebrated every single person. And because of that, I never had to ask them to pick up the slack. They held each other accountable because the team benefited. As much as there was individual prizes, there was also team incentives. And so because that was part of the DNA of us, it didn't matter if one person wasn't performing because they took it upon themselves to make sure that our numbers were hit week after week or surpassed, right? And if we were short of numbers, I didn't have to ask who's willing to work overtime to help us get there. They volunteered. And that goes back to great leadership, not managers. Leaders that lift you, that raise you, that cheer you, that support you and say, you're doing amazing. You know what? You haven't gone to sale in 3 days. You're going to have 7 sales tomorrow. And just believe that. And as soon as you do that, the mindset shifts. And all of a sudden, they produce 12 sales, for example. So I think this is a part of corporate culture that companies talk about from a conceptual part of stuff, but very few actually implement, right? So if you saw the movie The Internship with Owen Wilson and now I forget the actor's name, tall guy. Oh, he'll come to me. When they go to Google as 40-year-olds interns and they know nothing about coding, but they build a team. And it's about, making sure that people understand that we can work together and we help each other, but, everybody has their gifts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Joseph, I think it's important to announce at this point in our show that next week you will be doing live, I don't know if the word is readings, you'll be doing live readings of people's resumes. So, I thought might be fun this week if we talk about what are the components, the elements that you'll be looking for to determine which resumes are possibly going to hit the mark for a job opportunity, and what are some major red flags that you see, you possibly smell? Maybe there's some red lipstick, someone decided to kiss the thing. I don't know, all
So
kinds
here's
of
the thing.
crazy things.
I would actually celebrate the red lipstick and put it as a better resume because it catches my attention. So the first thing in a, let's say, 8-second glance, I'm looking to see if something catches my attention. Did you use a little color? Did you change the font? Did you change your bullet points from the regular black circles to something in bullets in Microsoft Word that's a little bit more creative, like a diamond, right? Did you kind of have just like black and white all straight down, or did you break it into components, right? So those are the obvious look fors. I spoke to an individual today that I looked at him, I said, you don't have enough technical skills. You've given me very little. And so I don't know if you know the other technical skills that go with this, or if you've had experience. And the worst mistakes is that people tend to go, I know how to do this. I have experience in that. So I'm going to use a few examples. If you're an accountant and you know how to do financial statements, my reaction is like, have you ever met any accountant that does not know financial statements? Because if there's an accountant that does not know financial statements, I have some serious questions. What are they doing as an accountant? Right? If I'm speaking to an engineer and the engineer tells me that they know that they've studied, let's say, quantum physics or physics in general, again, I have never met an engineer that has not taken at least one physics course, probably a few more. So if you tell me that you know physics as an engineer, who cares? Why is it that your knowledge in physics matters to me as an employer? Why is it that you are the best candidate for the job? And so your resume has to, in literally 8 to 30 seconds, make me curious to go, I want to have a conversation. So if you've worked for reputable companies, right, and the brand of the company says itself, like, if you work, let's say, I interviewed somebody that coded Amazon Prime. The moment any employer sees that this guy coded Amazon Prime, every company would want to hire him and speak to him, kind of thing. So there's some companies like Google, Facebook, that their reputation, Microsoft, for hiring the cream of the crop is so well known that having that name on your resume that you work there is instant credibility. It's the same thing when individuals graduate from the Ivy League, especially the top 10, the Harvard, Yale, Stanford. The moment that you have that as education, for example, you're instantly interviewed because there's a level of you've earned the right to say that you're different, better, other than everybody else in, let's say, America. So whether it's specific companies, whether it's the layout of your resume, the formatting of the resume, a little bit of color, a little bit of images, a little bit of better bullets, results, numbers that I can see, I'm looking to see if there's anything that I go, ooh, or wow, or ha, and go, I want to ask a question. If there's nothing, your resume is hurting you.
Okay. Excellent points. Some things that come to mind for me. I've mentioned before that I've always been in sales. And I remember we were up against some other companies to win this car manufacturer's business. It's a huge piece of business. And we decided that instead of doing our presentation, which was going to be, everyone's doing a stand-up PowerPoint, we were going to put something together in a box and we were going to hand deliver it. And it was going to be amazing. We were going to get the business, which we actually did. So my question is, instead of doing a typical resume, and again, this is not something where you're always going to have this opportunity, especially when you think about huge corporations, but is it okay? Is it welcome to actually go outside the box and possibly do something very creative instead of just sending in a resume? Maybe you leave a message with a song. Hello, my name is Jacalyn. I'd like to apply for a job. Or I'm just coming up with anything, or send
Actually,
something. Go ahead.
Listen, absolutely everything that will help you stand out is great. I know people that have sent singing telegrams. I know people that have bought, let's say, a box of Krispy Kreme donuts and sent the box to the department and put their resume inside and said, if you like the donuts, imagine what it will be like to have me on your team. I've had people pay window cleaners to basically glue their resume to the executive's window. I've had people send like flowers and I even had somebody that told me that they went to a fortune cookie manufacturer and basically paid to have the fortune say, if you don't hire, let's say, Jacalyn, you're crazy. The next fortune would say, your ROI would increase by 30% if you hire Jacalyn, and kind of email and phone number. And again, there's lots of, I know people that came at like 5:30 in the morning to the office, waited for the guy that delivers the papers, and then stuck their resume in every section of the newspapers, because the newspapers usually go to executives versus the typical kind of worker. I know people that figured out which gym the executive works out at and build a friendship at the gym. So yeah, if you can do something to stand out, you don't need a resume to start the conversation. The resume is a reassurance that the conversation was legitimate and that there's a trail of work experience. And of course, if they know your first and last name, they'll look you up on LinkedIn anyhow, to check that indeed you are who you say you are, for example. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to get noticed, and I'm constantly hearing of new and exciting things that people that actually did something different than others got to stand out, right? So again, depending on your financial situation, that would also depend on the investment for standing out. But it's not expensive and it's not hard to do something different. I remember one of my former bosses shared with me the story, and I'm going to kind of share the story he shared with me, which goes to show. So my boss was kind of working in a private college, and there was a gentleman who just lost his wife, had 3 kids, and he was working in a shoe store retail. And he saw this job posting for an entry level marketing job at Nike. And he went to my boss and said, I know I can do this job, but I've worked retail for 10 years in shoes. How do I stand out? And my boss looked at me and goes, do you trust me? And the guy said, yes, you helped me get, help me with financing for my tuition so that I can advance. That's why I'm learning business at the college, so that I can improve. And he goes, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to any sports store, and I want you to buy a pair of Nike shoes that are worth less than $100. And I want you to bring me the box with the shoes to the office tomorrow. And then he printed the resume, he rolled it up and put it in the left shoe. And then my boss at the time typed 2 sentences, said, now that I have my shoe in the door, can you look at the left shoe for my resume? Because I'd love to apply for the marketing position. And they wrapped up the box, and on the box it said, please read the right shoe first. So when HR arrived, let's say the next day to work, there's a pile of resume this high or a shoe box. Which one do you think they opened first?
Right. Did they open the wrong one?
No, he opened the shoe box.
Okay.
He looked at it, loved the fact that this person to apply for Nike sent Nike a pair of shoes, kind of thing. Right? And it sent it to the HR. They didn't even actually interview anybody else. They were so impressed with the creativity of this idea for a marketing role that they hired him. And my boss, or former boss, shared with me that he did such a good job that he eventually became the VP of Reebok shoes, kind of thing. So just goes to show that, yes, you can be different, and yes, you can get great results from it.
That's an excellent story. I love it. I haven't heard anything like that. I'll just share one very quick one, and then I'd like to actually go back to the elements of a resume. If we look at it from top to bottom, what should be included there? I was really interested in working with this company, and I found out that the decision maker was a huge basketball fan and loved to go to all the games in the the city where he lived. So I did some research, and I got this basketball that supposedly was one that he really liked over others. And I had it packaged, and I put, it's time that you give me a shot. The clock is running out, or something with a timer in it. And he saw me. We actually had a meeting. He goes, that was really clever. He said, you really got my attention. It felt like really gimmicky, but I got it in the door, and I ended up getting the business. It was for a sales job. But anyway, I want to go back to the anatomy of a winning CV or a winning resume. And I haven't seen a resume in a long time, but the top of it was always your basic contact information. And I know some
people. But here's the thing. So I'm going to stop right there. Sorry to cut you off, Jacalyn, but I want to say a few things. You can even format your name. You can put color in it. You can use a different font. So if you notice the logos behind my name, there's a different font and a different logo for both. They both draw different attention, right? So it is very important that even your name should be formatted. And I'm also, apparently my camera is being a little bit weird. I'm also a very big believer that you shouldn't put your address on your resume. And the reason being, I'm not sure how it is in different parts of the States, but at least in like where I live in Canada, in Toronto area, because it is so big, So, and we're now in winter. Some companies will look and go, oh my God, on a normal day without traffic, your commute is at least an hour to get to work. So I don't want to take the chance that you're going to call in bad weather. I can't come into the work, or because there's a snowstorm or anything like that. So I'm not going to hire anybody that's that far out. And I know companies that have eliminated some great candidates simply because of the distance. So my opinion is that you should have your name, your email, your phone number, your LinkedIn profile. If you are a developer or graphic designer, your GitHub or like link to your digital work. And that's it. If the company wants to hire you, they will ask for your address. But me personally, I don't think that putting an address is a good idea on a resume.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask a question about email address, and this actually came to light when I started doing the work that I'm doing, and people would give me their email address, and I'm AOL. Really? Are they? But does that say anything about you if you don't have a Gmail account? If you have, I like to ride my bike at AOL.com, just as an example.
Oh, you're laughing, but I actually have a collection of stupid emails that people put, and they don't realize that they when you're a child and you have a gimmicky email, sure. But if you're applying for like a six-figure job, one of the worst emails that I ever saw, and I apologize for this, but da as in DA underscore seaman underscore demon at hotmail.com. If you're applying for a six-figure job with an email such as Big Booty Mama or I love big butts or this, because you're trying to be silly, you're not getting any job. I guarantee that. So it doesn't matter the platform that you're on, whether it's AOL or Yahoo or any of the other email servers. The server itself is irrelevant. Just make sure that your email is on the side of professional, whether it's your first and last name, just first name, last name. Because Gmail has so many of the same names, they'll add a number to it. That's fine, right? But don't try to have a cutesy email that will come back to haunt you, because people will never take you seriously.
That's good to know. And it's not that hard to get a new email. You get a Gmail account for free, can't you?
Yes, but again, we are creatures of habit. So if you've used AOL for 20 years and the email still works, why would you change it, kind of thing. So I don't think that where the email comes from is that important, as long as it doesn't make people go, what did you write as your email address? Or really? So yeah, email can affect you. Like I had somebody that I just actually I wrote his resume in LinkedIn, and in 4 weeks he got in 2 weeks he got 4 job offers, and his email was hire his name at gmail.com. And I was like, a little bit catchy, but it worked. Or companies didn't pay attention to his email because they called him to interview him.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. I appreciate that. So at the top, we have the contact information, leave off the address. Next, from my memory, used to be the objective. And this one I always felt was all over the place, that people are just not honing in. Is this objective part something that should be specific to the work for which you're applying, or can this be a general overarching message?
So my opinion on the subject matter is objective statements are useless, because nobody cares that you want a challenging position with opportunity to grow and use your skills. If you're going to write an objective statement, your objective statement is to use my education, my experience, and my skills to make the company more money. That is your objective statement. And given that most employers today spend between 8 and 30 seconds reading a resume, they kind of go like this. They're not actually reading your objective statement. Nobody actually cares about your objective statement unless you were creative in the verbiage by hitting certain key elements, such as I'm a strategic visionary that's willing to challenge the norm while operating within, company standards to produce the best results for the company. But nobody cares about you. I've talked about this in the interview. Do not, it's about them when they're interviewing you. So your resume has to be, what can you do for them? Not the fact that you want to grow and be challenged, because challenging is relative to what? I'm very good at math. I know people that aren't very good at math. So to them, doing a lot of math would be challenging. I'm not very good at videos. So if I now applied for a job to be a video editor, that would be extremely challenging for me. So for me to write an objective statement that says, I'm looking for a challenging position, there we go. I found one I know nothing about.
Okay. So the objective part out the door with the address. So now we go right into the work experience. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned 25 years, don't go past that. So I'm 60, let's say, God forbid, I decide I was going to go get a job. I'm only going to go back. Unfortunately for me, I've only had a small number of jobs, but you've mentioned you've had a number of jobs, and there are many people out there who've had a number of jobs. Is that misleading if you leave off the first X number of jobs?
Here's the thing. So if I worked retail as a salesperson, but I've also built a call center from scratch that's a sales call center, does anybody care that I worked retail? So unless you've been doing more or less the same thing for 20, 30 years, and again, if you've been doing the same thing 20, 30 years, I don't care what you did 30 years ago. I care what you did in the past 15 years ago, past 15 years, because that's relevant information. So there's a way, and most people go right into their job or put their education at the top. If you have experience, you should never put your education at the top, because your education is never going to get you a job unless your education is from the Big Ten Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, Berkeley, MIT. Those will get you hired instantly. But your education doesn't help you. Your certifications won't necessarily help you. And you can actually put the name of the certification beside your name to actually increase. But what I like to do is two sections. One is a section called areas of expertise. So this is replacing the standard cookie cutter skills where people write, I have 20 years of experience. I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed, and team player. In 20 years of recruiting, I've never met anybody, or I've met very few people, because I have met a few, that will say, listen, I'm lazy. I'll show up late. None of my work will be any good, and I really hate people. So stop saying that you're hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills and interpersonal skills, because everybody says that. And if I want to know how much, I will ask you questions about it. And so it's a waste of paper. So technical skills that are associated. So Jacalyn, you've worked in sales, so you would use sales or B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation, marketing, negotiations. Those are words that are part of the algorithm in most job boards / applicant tracking systems / websites that companies use to hire. And those are the words that companies look for, not manage, direct, liaise, coordinated, which are action words that we've been taught for the past 40 years are important to write on your resume. They are, but they're not. Then after the areas of expertise, I tend to have a section called selected highlights. in which I put the top 5 points from your career, Jacalyn, that says, here's the best results that you produced. And then I go into the actual job history, because again, if an employee is spending 8 to 30 seconds on a resume, they're looking at the top third to the top half of the first page of your resume. They don't read page 2. And again, when I worked in finance after 9/11, I was downsized from a mutual fund company, and I applied to another mutual fund company. And the HR person was like, it's great that you're licensed. It's great that you understand how to correct the transactions for mutual funds and all of the moving parts in the mutual fund industry. But have you ever worked in a call center? And I looked at her and said, if you flip to page 2 of my resume, I worked in your call center for 6 months. And she kind of paused, went to page 2, went, oh yeah, there it is. So don't assume that they've read your resume. And so the most important and the most relevant information should and must be on page 1 of your resume.
I love that. I love that. Now, what about this? You gave an example about Nike. What if I was applying for a job at Nike and I happened to put no objective, but just the first part? I'm a huge brand advocate for Nike. I buy 20 pairs of Nike shoes every year. I love the way I feel when I'm running down the court. Can we show that we really are aligned with the branding, or is that ridiculous?
So there's easier ways of doing it where, I mean, again, creative copy, always good. But if you want to show how much you love Nike, here's what you can do. So there's one of 2 ways you could do it is go on Google, find some images of Nike shoes, and use them as your bullets. So shrink or find logos or small images so that when you shrink them to the size of a bullet, they can see the shoes. It will draw their attention. I've done this especially for individuals that are like in high school or in college and have never had a job. Like, put the logo of the retailer that you're trying to apply for on there. So like, I had kids that I helped that wanted to work at Booster Juice. So we made the icons of Booster Juice as their bullet points. So that highlighted how much they love Booster Juice because the logo was throughout the resume. And it was definitely not the black little circle. So it definitely got attention and got the kid an interview and got them hired because they're like, yeah, we've never seen a resume with our own logo on it kind of thing. So
I love that. So what I'm taking away again is that creativity is encouraged. Now, one thing I just want to have us touch on before as we close out this
unless
section.
you're applying for government work.
Okay.
I'll make that caveat because that's not encouraged. But for generally, again, not every company loves creativity. So I always tell people to have 2 versions of their resume. One that's more standard, but still highlights how great you are in terms of result. And one that I call more modern, that is creative. And again, creativity doesn't have to be very advanced graphic design. It could be go to Microsoft Word and click on insert text box, or click on symbol, or click on the bullet 3 dots and choose one of the other bullets to change the appearance of your resume.
Okay, that's really good that you clarify that. One thing I also wanted to have you clarify is, where are the boundaries? So when we're talking about those 2 areas that you spoke about on the resume, where is it that we really should stay in alignment with what's traditional? It's okay to add your own flair, add your own font, do some research and add some creativity. But at the end of the day, there's certain information that people want to see. And if it's not on there, that might eliminate you from even being considered. Is that true or not true?
Again, I think it depends on the industry and the role that you're playing. right? Because, for example, in the world of software development, every 3 months there seems to be a new version or a new tool that's being used by developers. So you don't necessarily need to list all of them, but you definitely need to list key ones that are being utilized together on a regular basis, for example, because you have tools for like the design, you have tools for interaction, you have tools that communicate with the database, you have tools that actually create reports, you have to. So it's important to list that. But again, if I'm going to use yourself, Dr. Jacalyn, if you have 20 years of experience and you've been more or less in the same field, I don't need you to mention every single technical thing that you learned at university or college, because given you have stayed in the profession, it is implied that you already have the skill sets, right? But again, in terms of how far you can go, again, like you can make your objective statement outside the box. The technical skills are technical skills. So if I'm dealing with a software developer and they've coded in Java or Vue.js or Node.js or React or Python, I still need to write those words. Which font I use to write the word, that's up to you. And again, some of the job boards and some of the websites to apply for a job might not recognize fonts outside the Arial, Times New Roman, or Calibri standards. But that's why you have two resumes, one that's modern that you've chosen a different font, and one that follows the routine, so that if they're trying to upload information, the routine will capture the information, for example. But at the end of the day, even with my clients, I say to them, look, if you have an opportunity to send an attachment, send the modern, the creative, with the color, with the different fonts, with a different layout than the typical cookie cutter layout. If you're getting feedback that somebody doesn't like there's two ways that you can get feedback on a resume: the layout and the content. In, I would say, 98, 99% of the cases of resumes that I've written, the only feedback is we don't like the layout. No one's ever complained about the content, because the content hits the algorithms of the machines that you have to apply through, and it gives relevant information. Because let's say if I use highlights from my career and I say I built a call center that generated $2.25 million in less than 6 months with an expectation of generating $300,000 for the year. I worked in a private college that generated $530,000 in sales for the entire year. When I was hired, I generated $860,000 in 1 month for them. I redid the entire branding and marketing for a college that more than tripled sales because of the way that the information was presented. Right. I was in charge of an HR team that was recruiting on average 200 to 400 people per week. You don't need to know where I've worked. Those examples will justify that if you want to hire me as a director of HR or a sales leader, I know what I'm doing and I've produced results. A good interviewer will ask me questions like, how did you get $860,000 in 1 month? Or how did you inspire your team at the call center to produce such 8 times the expectation, because it was $2.25 million on a budget of $300,000, right? So if the information is worded correctly, everything else is semantics, in my opinion.
All right. That was a great way to bring everything to closure. So we are closing out our show for today as we have another one right after this. But Joseph, can you please set the stage for next week when people will have this incredible opportunity to come on the show live, or if they're afraid, they could send the resume in. What do you want people to do? What are you looking for next week?
So I would love for have people actually join us on the the StreamYard and share their resume, and I will give them specific tips that not only can help them get an instant raise, but also interviews for jobs. I'm very proud of the fact that in the 11,000 people that I've helped over 30 people get hired in 2 days. 2 days. And so my goal with the show is to give you enough gold that even if you implement on your own, you might not get it in 2 days because there's an art to wordsmithing a resume, but you'll start getting interviews, let's say within 2 weeks, and close out the year where you have job offers for you for the new year that are paying you more money, recognizing how amazing you are, and kind of giving you that opportunity to grow, to be challenged, to have more, better, different kind of thing. That's my goal. That's why I also do this podcast, because I want the population. Unfortunately, right now in North America, there's 50 million people that are unemployed and counting. There's 50 million people that are severely underemployed, meaning have a university or college degree, but work in retail like McDonald's. And then there's 30 to 40 million people going through some sort of educational retraining, which means there's a lot of people that think they know how to find a job. But if you're spending 6 months to a year looking for a job, you're doing it wrong, right? I've had it is a sense of pride for me to know that in now close to 12,000 people, on average, the people that work with me found a job in a month and a half. Right now, that's where I'm at. And about 90% of the people find a job in about a month and a half. Again, if they do the homework once I do my magic.
Well, there you have it. Life-changing opportunity for how many people do we want? One or two?
We can actually take, I would say, 5 or 6, because I'm going to spend about 10, maximum 10 minutes per resume. And people will see is when different people come in, some of the feedback I'll give will be the same patterning for their resume. So what I'll try to do is, if I have 5 or 6, is hone in on different things on each resume so that each participant and all of the listeners can get a collective value of, oh my God, I can do this, and automatically have wow resumes kind of thing.
All right, let's get this promotion going, and we'll look forward to whomever is going to be joining us, these lucky people, 5 people next week. Joseph, we have your contact information, and of course it's behind you. What is the best way for people to reach out, and who do you want to contact you?
Again, I work predominantly with white collar professionals. So these would be your engineers, your accountants, your data scientists, your financial people, your fintech people, your medical professionals. Um, and again, that's who I normally, executives that are in transition. Uh, but I've also worked with new graduates and helped them get their first job at a better salary and with better conditions than they expected. So at the end of the day, I'm looking for somebody that wants to invest in themselves. And as you said earlier in the show, is willing to be coachable. Because if you're coming on the show and you tell me how much you know, you're not the person I want to speak to and help. I'm here to share my wisdom, my 30,000 hours of mastery, to make your life better and easier. So I need somebody to be open-minded and coachable when I say, here's the changes that you need to make, and you need to make them right now, like immediately, if you want to, let's say, get a $30,000 raise, if you want a six-figure job in 2024, if you want to get promoted in your current job, for example.
All right, Joseph, thank you for sharing that. So for people who are interested in being part of the show, there are a couple of things that you can do. One, you can send your resume directly to us at USA Global TV and Radio. You can go to Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com. You can also go directly to Joseph. Joseph, what's the best email for people to reach you?
We'll make it nice and easy. Land your dream job now at gmail.com.
I love it. Let me put that here. Land your dream job now.
At gmail.com.
All right. There you go. So I'm putting that into the notes as well. So here you go. Land your dream job now at gmail.com. Well, we look forward to seeing who these incredibly lucky, special people are going to be who are going to be joining us next week. And it might even go over until the following week. Who knows? Joseph, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for, again, giving me the opportunity to inspire and share and help others succeed.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thanks everyone for watching, for listening. And again, this show will be replayed later in the week. You can go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and you can find this in the playlist Resume Whisperer. Thank you again. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, everyone. Bye, Joseph.
Bye.
Bye.